Rockwell was very, very prolific. He worked all the time. But I think he worked all the time because he did not exist outside the studio, really. He was two different people.
In fact, I think he had a model that he tacked to the top of his easel that said 100%. And he did, in fact, live up to that self-imposed requirement. He would do things over for the slightest reason. Most other illustrators would have been entirely happy with what he had produced, but he was very, very critical of himself.
He struggled through all his paintings. He wanted them to be real masterpieces, and none of them came easy. It was like giving birth, like he said.
Oh, he used to have a lot of difficulty and was really bothered by it sometimes. And you could tell when he was really bothered, he would go out and look at it after supper because, you know, he just couldn't leave it alone.
It's the proverbial carrot in front of the donkey's nose. You're always striving to get perfection in a better kind of way. I'm sure he struggled and had very many, you know, disconcerting hours in front of the canvas.
I think he worried about Mary, and he was getting older. Let's face it, and I'm sure it wasn't easy. When Mary died, of course, the boys were all set in their own lives. I think all of them were married at the time, so he found himself with work and a big house. He read an ad in the local newspaper that said that this lady from Stockbridge, Molly Punderson, retired school teacher, come back to the community, was starting a poetry class up in Lenox Library. And Peter had just visited him and said he should be joining something and getting out into the community more. That would help him. And he thought about it after Peter left and picked up the paper and saw this ad and thought, oh, I like poetry. And joined the class, and voila. He was quite taken with the young lady.
One day Molly was walking down our driveway, and she said, Jane, I have something to tell you. And I said, oh, good. She said, I'm getting married. And I said, who are you marrying? And she said, Norman Rockwell. I nearly fell off the top step. I know, I thought that was so wonderful.
When I was growing up, my father, I can remember him taking one vacation. The first day we got there, he rented the studio and put out his paintings, and the second day he began to work again. So that was the one vacation I really remembered. But as he got older, he and Molly used to take quite a few trips together, and there are quite a number of paintings and sketches that he made on those trips. So, but they were very casual, and he wasn't, I don't think he thought it was really working.
She was very good for Norman. She made him realize some of the things that were important, like getting paid for your pictures.
The Post was in a lot of trouble, and they were trying to revive it, and I suppose it was the influence of television. And they finally decided that they weren't going to use any more covers like my father did. So he decided there wasn't anything for him there, and so he went off and to work for other magazines. He became interested in the civil rights movement because I think that he was always interested in tolerance.
I was about 18 or 19 years old the first time that I actually saw it. And I was doing an interview with a reporter that had come in from out of town. And I remember him showing it to me and saying, so what do you think about this? Did you know that it's you? And I didn't know. No one really talked about that incident in New Orleans, where I lived. And it was never discussed in my household. By my family. It was like it happened, and let's just get past it. And they did, and it was never brought up. So I wasn't really raised discussing it, reading about it, knowing a whole lot about it. And so for the most part, I think when he showed it to me, it confirmed what I had been thinking all along, that this was very important. and you did this, and it should be talked about. At that point in time, you know, that's what the country was going through. And here was a man that had been doing lots of work, painting family images, and all of a sudden decided, this is what I'm going to do. It's wrong, and I'm going to say that it's wrong. I mean, I don't know what he went through at the time, if it caused him any sort of backlash by doing it. But the mere fact that he had enough courage to step up to the plate and say, I'm going to make a statement. And he did it in a very powerful way. So even though I had not had an opportunity to meet him, I commend him for that.
Many people admired Mr. Rockwell for taking on this rather radical subject matter for him. He put everything he had into it, and I think some of his best pictures were the result of it.
One of two black families in the town of Stockbridge then, as we are to this day, natives of Stockbridge. And he wanted to use a person of color. It was very easy for him to go to Grandpa and say, look, Dave, is there someone in your family that fits this description? Even if there wasn't, you know, Grandpa would say, sure. Now the poses were kind of comical because the cat wouldn't cooperate. And the cat is right next to us. I mean, that was a 20-pound cat darn near. Molly took us into the house, and I remember having peanut butter and marshmallow fluff sandwiches and Coca-Cola. But once we got back into the studio, she took us back out to the studio, and that cat, I'll never forget it. It went from being a monster to being a pussycat, a little pussycat. We got along here. There was no rioting. Nobody was throwing bricks through anybody's window. But I could understand what was going on in the country when I saw things happening in Selma, Alabama, and Dr. King giving his speeches, and Malcolm X getting murdered and whatnot. It made me feel bad. It made me feel bad because I couldn't do anything about it. We've seen progression from those paintings as far as a person of color is concerned. He spoke out. He spoke out not with words, but with his stroke on the canvas.
There's always a current running in there. I don't know if tension is the right word, but there's always two worlds. He's working, the kid coming home from the war, so I have the kid in the uniform, but here's home. I think almost everything you see two different worlds there, and you see the way the two worlds come together.
I remember when he went to Israel. He came to the temple, to my temple, and he came to our library, and I had to give him books on Israel. He wanted to read up. He was a meticulous creator. He had to have everything exact. And they allowed him to take the spaceman suit back so he could make certain that every detail of his drawing would be perfect.
Well, but you think about the 60s when the space travel was really taking off, no pun intended, and man landing on the moon in the late 60s. Rockwell's reputation was already embellished in American history. So I think that's what put him in a great position to kind of expand on maybe taking a gamble on the social issues, but getting into some real historical issues and having those contacts to be able to even go visit the Kennedy Space Center or get a real live NASA suit instead of the kind of the Halloween one that he gave me. Supposedly Norman Rockwell was looking for a cute little kid to be a boy astronaut watching the spaceship take off. He was getting very frustrated, and he kept, hold your head up, and I had a hard time doing that. But he was very patient with me, and he actually wrote me a personal check for sitting for him for $40. And I thought I was the richest kid in Lenox at that time, but I wish I still had that check. Norman Rockwell was just the guy that we knew. He was the guy that we did electrical work for. He was the guy that we saw riding his bike in Stockbridge, Massachusetts. Just a guy that we thought would be around forever. Never at that time thinking that he was this world-famous American illustrator. And I was one of his models.